Good morning again. I'm Alicia Melton, and welcome to Today in Black History. And today I'm going to talk about the National Association of Colored Women. Their organization was founded today, July 21st, 1896, and they're still active. So that makes 124 years of their existence. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading about their history. The National Association of Colored Women was a merger between the National League of Colored Women and the National Federation of Afro-American Women. The merger enabled, and I'll be using the acronyms NACW. The merger enabled the NACW to function as a national umbrella group for local and regional Black women's organization. Mary Church Terrell was elected president at the meeting in Washington, D.C., Washington's 19th Street Baptist Church. NACW's roots lay in decades of local political activity by women. This activity was often took the form of women's clubs and was the result of heightened racism, a need for social services within the Black community, and the exclusionary policies of many white-run organizations. Good morning, Granny Girl. Good morning, Jocelyn. I'm talking about the National Association of Colored Women. Today is their Founders Day. They were founded July 21st, 1896. All right. The Black women who gathered in Washington, D.C. in July of 1896 to form a national organization of women were following in the tradition of earlier generations who had come together in clubs to address immediate and long-range issues impacted upon their communities. These formal and informal groups were means of self-expression and a vehicle to assure self-determination over their lives and their communities. At the turn of the century, grave political, social, and economic considerations moved them to beyond their local and state associations to devise plans for the formation of a national body that would systematically and professionally address the problems that they believed threatened their very survival. So while they have been around longer than the NAACP, yes. Right. So I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that this may be the oldest Black. I'm not even it definitely may be the oldest Black women's organization, but I'm wondering if it's one of the oldest Black organizations that's still that's still existing. I'm not sure about that. A series of events facilitated the emergence of the National Association of Colored Women. In 1895, a national convention of Black women was called by Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, leader of Boston's New Era Club, to respond to a racist letter sent by James Jack, a Southern journalist, to a British reformer. He wrote that Blacks lacked morality and that Black women were prostitutes, natural liars, and thieves. Because of the local clubs and magazine. Oh, I'm sorry. So he wrote this letter to discredit the anti-lynching and activities of the journalists and reformer of Ida B. Wells. So his letter to this newspaper was a direct response to how successful Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching campaign was happening. So, so there was a call for all these Black women groups, clubs to come together in 1895 at a convention, um, which was led by Josephine Saint Pierre Ruffin. And at that convention, this is in 1895, so it was a year before the NACW actually formed. So, of the formation of the National Federation of Afro American Women and the National League of Colored Women, which that was the league that Mary Church Terrell was part of, they began to work together. And then later, um, the two organizations, a year later in 1896, those two organizations merged, and then they just became the National Association of Colored Women. All right. So, committed to social reform and racial betterment, the NACW achieved its greatest growth from the 1890s to the 1920s. Shortly after it was founded, the NACW had 5,000 members. 20 years later, it had 50,000 members and 28 federations and over 1,000 clubs. By 1924, it had reached 100,000 members. The NACW adopted the motto of lifting as we climb, promoting self-help among women. The NACW saw their organization in terms of gender and race, viewing their women's movement as a way to uplift Black women, men, and children. For example, the NACW saw the struggle for suffrage as the right to vote, not just for women, but also for Black men still disfranchised through political maneuverings of whites. The organization also raised awareness around lynching, segregation, and other issues specific to the Black community. They also took a strong stance against the roots of racial injustice. In the early years, the club women opposed segregation and the brutal convict lease system. In the early years, the journal, in the early years, the NACW journal, which was titled National Notes, was printed at Tuskegee Institute under the direction of Margaret Murray Washington, who was Booker T. Washington's wife at the time. National Notes, their journal, became a tool to discuss ideas and disseminate information. By 1910, they had expanded their goals to include the Women's Suffrage Amendment and the federal anti-lynching bill, and had to come to believe that to effect change, more than simply exposures of the brutalities that African Americans faced was necessary. After the Red Summer of 1919, the NACW, under the leadership of Mary Talbert, joined the crusade against lynching and mobilized Black women, raised money, and educated the public. They made verbal protests against racial injustice and advocated for boycotts of segregated facilities. It was successful in creating a national political voice for Black women. As the organization evolved, its interests expanded to include a host of social services, including raising money for kindergarten, libraries, orphanages, and homes for the elderly. Also, it involved a variety of projects that address problems of health, housing, education, working conditions to create social spaces for Black women. It was primarily the organization through which women channeled their reform efforts. All right. So, to describe some of the women who were part of this organization, they were primarily middle class, often professional women involved in teaching and or other social service occupations. Their local activities for multi-service centers that combine the many goals of the NACW reform efforts. They provided material assistance through daycare, health services, job training to help women secure jobs. And they also actively promoted cultural events such as musical concerts and literature groups. Oh, thanks for posting that, Daniela. And also I think it's Crusade for the Vote. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. During the Great Depression, the stature and importance of the NACW began to decline, and for a time, the organization met only periodically. Many of the welfare and social services that the organization provided available through were available through better funded local, state, and private agencies created this expresses especially for this purpose. So at this time, you had a lot of state and local governments who were providing the same services that NACW were providing, which was, I guess, people started, going to those, using those services, and so their services begin to decline. These issues, coupled with declining membership and financial insecurity, made NACW a less effective organization. In 1935, Mary McLeod Bethune, who served as president of the NACW from 1924 to 1928, formed the National Council of Negro Women, which acted as an umbrella for African American Women's Organization. This led to a redefinition of NACW, which was no longer the only national black women's organization. In 1957, NACW changed its name to the National Association of Colored Women's Club. So now you say NACWC. Yeah, so that's their official website. Thank you, Daniela. NACWC.com. All right. All right. All right. So yeah, so that's their website there, and so there's like I said, they're still active today. And so they're still uplifting women and children and families, communities through service, community education, and scholarship assistance. They also have regional and state chapters. Florida is part of the Southeast Regional Association. And now I'm not really sure how active or where these chapters are in Florida, but I'm just going to read a little bit of history of how some of these chapters and how the state chapter started. So from 1899 to 1901, member clubs of the NACWC in Florida were founded in Jacksonville. They included the Jacksonville Women's Christian Industrial and Protective Union, the Phyllis Wheatley Circle, and the Afro American Women's Club. The Afro American Women's Club was the first of these clubs to be affiliated with the national organization. Among its first officers were Eartha Mary Magdalene White, who was well known for her social work in Jacksonville. After attending a meeting of the national organization, Mrs. White and other Florida delegates issued a call for the formation of a state organization of African American Women's Club in Florida. The State Federation of Colored Women's Club was established in 1908. October 27, 1927, the Florida organization was chartered as a nonprofit corporation in Tampa. The organization's stated goals included maintaining higher and noble ideas, promoting civic movements, advocating welfare units to support moral, religious, social, literary, and interracial advancement, establishing wholesome recreational facilities for young women, and encouraging the organization of new clubs. Um, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, the well known educator and founder of Bethune Cookman University in Daytona Beach, served as the president of the State Federation from 1916 to 1920. During that time, addressing the needs of delinquent girls was a was adopted as a major project area, which eventually led to the legislature's establishment of Forest Hills, a facility for delinquent African American girls. Um, the Women's Club membership continued to grow in Florida. By 1980, there were 91 local clubs. 6 communities had clubhouses, and those clubhouses were in Bradenton, Belle Glade, Fort Pierce, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Palmetto. Other clubs um, met in homes, schools, or churches. I'm not sure about Claire White. I have not come across her name, but the person who um, started the organization in Florida from Jacksonville was what did I say? It was Martha. Her name was Eartha Mary Magdalene White. So Claire White, yeah, yeah. I don't know who Claire White Mission. Okay. All right, so that is the history of the National Association of Colored Women's Club. So it's club now. That was changed in 1957, and so like I said, they're still active today. Daniela posted in the comments their website, and today they're actually having a Founders Day event online. So you can go to their website, and it's going to be on Zoom at 6 o'clock. So if you're interested, you can participate in their Founders Day celebration today. And so more info. Oh, you're saying it's titled. It is the Clara White Mission. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Clara White Mission. Okay. Um so what was I going to say? All right, so definitely to learn more about the organization. Oh, so are you saying this is the same woman who I was Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. All right, so I'll look at that when I'll read about that when I get off. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so that's like I said, I'm not sure if the NACW chapters or clubs here in state of Florida, I don't know. I was trying to find information about some of the chapters here in Florida, but I only got, like only saw like the history of how it started. But if some of you are part of that or know any women that's part of it, um, please share. So I definitely want to mention this, my sources and where you can find more information, read up um about this organization. Yeah, I'm not sure if there is a local chapter here in Miami. That's something that I would have to like research further. Just the chapters in Florida in general, I need to do more, um, research because on there. No, see, that's a separate National Council of Negro Women is a separate organization. So Mary McLeod Bethune was part of the NACW. She was the president at one point. I think I just mentioned her years as she was the president of the NACW, but Dr. Bethune founded NCNW in 1935. So she founded that organization while participating in NACW. And I do know, oh, what? Clara White was her mother. Clara White was who mother? Oh, Clara White was Mary McLeod Bethune's mother. Um, so going back to Miss Brennan's, but I do know there's a chapter of NCNW in Miami. But yes, NCNW and NACW um are two separate organizations. And NACW was first. Yeah. So but I'm just not sure about NACW. If they're active here still in the state of Florida, because on their on the national website, it just lists the states who are part of the different regions. But I don't see, they don't have any like contact information. I guess if you're interested in membership, then they will probably connect you with someone in your area, that's closest to you in your city. Yeah. So these connections in history are fascinating. Yeah, it's like as you read and you research, you start connecting, these stories and because really with the NACW, it was a group of women that all came together to address what was going on, not just with Black women, but what was happening in our community. And so a lot of these women, just like I mentioned, Margaret Washington, who was Booker T. Washington's wife. So she was part of her own women's group. And then you had Mary Church Terrell, who was part of her own women's group. And then you had Ida B. Wells, who was, had her anti-lynching campaign, where this really started, created this organization. So you had all these women that we've heard of, that we read about in history, but you have all these women who were coming together under one umbrella of this organization to address some of these concerns. And it seemed like in 1935, when Mary Cobb Bethune started NCNW, I think she was doing the exact same thing. And maybe, I don't know, maybe she thought, because I read where NACW was declining in the 1930s during the Great Depression, and maybe she felt like she needed to, start another organization to refuel, to re-energize the women. So, but I definitely know NCNW is very active. The president is Dr. Janetta Coles right now. So I definitely know NCNW is very active. But, to learn more, like I said, they're having a Founders Day event online today. So, check them out. It's at 6:00. Okay, so my sources was blackpast.org, their website in NACW, I think it's .com, NACWC.com, encyclopedia.com, the records of the National Association of Colored Women, 1895-1992. Okay, so thank you everyone for listening and participating in the discussion and adding to some information that I did not know that I'm going to go back and research. Thank you, Daniela, for posting the website for me. And so tomorrow we will have Jeopardy Noir at 2 p.m. And I will see you next week at 11 o'clock. Thank you.